Welcome in, everybody. How's everybody doing out there? Hope everybody is having a great day. We're in with another live lesson. So let me know who's hanging in here. For those guys who haven't seen me for a couple of weeks, new studio, well, temporary studio in the new house while the other one's being built up. So I'm going to be doing these live lessons a little bit less often than I was doing before, in all honesty, but they're still going to be coming to you every now and then, so I can keep you guys busy. Now, I asked earlier on this week if anybody had any particular things they wanted to look at today, and a few people mentioned looking at traditional left-hand technique. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at the technique that I use for marching. Well, I use it on drum kit, on everything, but the technique that I teach for marching drummers to use, particularly in a drum corps style, for their left hand. So make sure that you've got some sticks with you. Pad, drum will be brilliant. And we'll get stuck into that in one moment. We'll let a couple of other people drop in. In case you guys are dropping in this for the first time, this is something that we've been doing. We're on show number 19, I believe, now. So there's lots of previous shows. If you want to go and check those shows out, then get yourself in the Marching Drummers Lounge on Facebook. And get yourself over on YouTube, Freestyle Rudiments. Over there's loads of lessons. Ironically, actually, today we're going to be looking at technique. There is actually a lesson on there already on technique, but I think this is going to be a lot more interactive. I know some really good drummers who sometimes drop into here. I'm really keen for you guys to give your input as well. So if you just type in any comments, any thoughts, any questions, they pop up on my screen here, so I can do my best to answer them. And I'll be honest with you, if anything I don't know the answer to, I'll put it out, or I'll ask somebody, or I'll come back to you. All right? So don't be scared to ask questions. Today, obviously, is in conjunction with the Freestyle Rudiments Academy. So I've now released the Academy. So anybody wants to go and check that out, that's all live now. So go and have a look at that. The website is live, freestylrudiments.com. There's a full Marching Drummers Academy now on there for you to check out. There's lessons, there's content added weekly. I'm adding all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to do a big sales pitch for you on that now, but get yourself over there. There's plenty of videos on there telling you all about it. Telling you what it offers you and what you can get from it. So freestylrudiments.com, get yourself in there. Okay, let's get into this lesson then. So who we got in here? I can see Suggs is in. Come on the wire. Are they playing today, are they? All right, let's get stuck in. So I want to talk a little bit about drum corps technique has evolved, right? So if we went back 40, 50 years, there'd be a slight variation on the left-hand technique to what there is today. But it hasn't changed that much, right? And to put it in perspective, my initial kind of learning of traditional technique was back when I marched DCI. And so I picked up off of the people I was around how to do that. Now, I marched tenors for the majority of the time that I did drum corps. I did snare for a season as well, or two maybe. And I do snare a lot now with percussion theatre. But by hanging around with those people, you just pick up things and you talk to them, you ask them. And so my initial technique came from basically these guys. So this is Blue Devils 1995. And so you've got Roger Carter, you've got George there, you've got guys in that line who basically all had a technique that was real big and loud, and it was all about full turn, aggressive. The taps were down here, the accents were up here, so it was like this kind of motion. All about that left turn. So I've obviously been influenced to do that. However, right, as the activity's grown and changed, if we come forward now and I show you maybe something a little bit more current, you'll see that there's a slight difference in the way that they're approaching the drum. So check out these guys again. So this is kind of, let's call it old school now. And then if we check out this, see there's a lighter touch. So in my opinion, what's actually kind of evolved is a slightly more efficient touch, a slightly lighter touch. They're still, these guys can still play loud when they need to play loud, but the general heights are kind of more like here rather than here all the time. The taps, instead of being right the way down here, being pushed, are a little bit looser, and everything's slightly more kind of movie like this. So we're going to talk about that today, all right? But I want to get straight in. What I'm going to do straight away is we're going to talk about how to get you playing with your left hand. I have no idea who's watching this. I've no idea. I've no idea. Sorry, just reading Suggs' comment then. So Suggs just said, is it more about sound quality now? So that's a good question. So I think it's more about balance of the line. I think also the judging has changed, which means now it's more, the shows are more based on a general effect. And so you haven't got guys right in your face anymore, judging every little tick. I'm not saying they play dirty by any means, but I mean that the way that they're trying to impress the judges is different. They're trying to impress a judge which is 50, 60 meters away, whereas before they were trying to impress a judge that was right in your face. The tuning has slightly changed. The heads have changed. Everything's a little bit looser now. But I think the big thing is the guys now have got more chops than they had back when I marched. And they play a lot looser. So they're able to do kind of some of the things that you wouldn't have been able to do back in the 80s with the arms and stuff, because you would have been badly judged for doing this, is now kind of seen as acceptable. Now, for guys who are tuning in today, just their kit players maybe wanting to learn this, when I talk about some of these things, we're talking about trying to get 8 or 9 people looking exactly the same. So some of these things are where we're in certain positions, or if you see people standing like this, that's not necessarily the most efficient way of standing, but that's easy for me to get 8 people to look exactly the same. Whereas when we start to get some of these movements, it's a bit more difficult. Now, what seems to have happened now is, whereas there was different techniques for different lines, they all seem to have come very much now, so they're very similar. Now, let's get stuck in anyway, right? I'm going to just talk you through now as if you've never played traditional grip at all, and I'm going to show you the way that I teach it. If you have any questions, like Suggs just did there, just type in straight away, because it's going to lead this lesson wherever it's going to go, right? So, first thing we're going to talk about is if you just put your hand out in front of you like this, straight in front like that. If we just turn our hand like this, and then we go the other way, well, in here we've got 2 bones that basically twist around each other. And so a big part of the technique that I first learnt was about this. Now, you can see my arm moving here, right? Don't worry too much about whether that happens or not. We're going to come on to that in a minute. At the moment, it's just these 2 bones spinning around. Now, you could hit the pad with your thumb like that. The main thing you're looking at doing, though, is bringing the thumb all the way back each time. So just have a few goes of just doing that. Now, that part there, that's the power, that's the meat for me in my left hand. Right, hold your hand out like this. If we put our stick, if we take our stick like this and we divide it into thirds, most of the time, most people are going to agree that it's going to be pretty much at the end of the start, the last third, the start of the last third. Now, there's some discrepancies here, right? You're going to probably pick me out here, because when I play, I actually play a little bit further down the stick. Now, there's reasons for that. I do something called freestyle drumming, which is all about stick tricks and stuff. So we do lots of back sticking and all these crazy kind of motions. And so it's actually a little bit easier there, right? 9 out of 10 drum corps are going to hold it a bit further back. So maybe there. So 1/3, 2/3, right in there. Now, for some people, just doing that is difficult, because I've got a little bit of thumb strength there, which is kind of squeezing the thumb a little bit, I'm going to say, right? Not a lot. What we don't want is the stick falling down like this, all right? We want it here. So it's not falling down just about here, all right? Now, step 1 is, have you got the strength to just turn your hand upside down like this and point the stick in the air? So go from here to here. Now, it's not perfect, right? I'm going to have to straighten my stick up a little bit. But that's the first thing we want to think about. Now, eventually, I can turn that into actual hits on the drum. So I can actually just do that. And at the moment, I'm trying my best to keep that angle there. If that angle starts to turn, to lose like this, what I can't do then is turn. So on that video I showed you at the start of Blue Devils, Roger Carter is able to turn like this because of what I'm talking about here. Anybody who holds the stick at this angle to start with is only going to get a small turn, all right? So make sure we get from this part here, turning all the way back. And we're trying to get a full turn at the moment. Now, how far back do we hold it in here? Well, we don't want it all the way back, as in like, there's like a kind of a bit of skin there that everyone's got. I'll show you in this above camera here. So this bit of skin here, right? I want to hold it so it's just about touching that skin. I don't want to be pushing it all the way in there. I want to be holding it just before it gets to that knuckle there. Now, we don't really necessarily want a gap here, right? But it's not the end of the world if you hold it a bit too far this way. It ends up being a bit at the end of the world if you hold it too far that way, because your whole hand kind of collapses into a different position. So from here, we're just going to play a whole bunch of these. I'm just reading one of the comments. So yeah, Ian McMillan. So Ian would remember the advent of Kevlar heads, these heads, all right? So young guys, before we had these, people used to play on plastic heads, and that changed the style a lot. Obviously, people start getting injuries because of these heads, because they can hurt you if you play with bad technique. You've got to loosen up. But obviously it also changed the way that people had to play. When you play on these heads, like you get a drum kit player play on these heads for the first time and they're in shock because it feels so different to anything they felt before. Okay, right, so part one, that's that bit done. Right, what's my thumb for then? Well, if you hold your hand out in front of you like this, I'll do it in front of my t-shirt so you can see, and you just do this with your thumb. Like you're pressing down on a controller on an Xbox or something. Well, that motion there, your muscles, which move this, which are probably up here in your arm actually, and maybe some in the thumb, are going to be the same equivalent muscles when I'm playing with this on my right hand, and my back fingers, if you're watching this up camera, are doing this and moving the stick. Well, that's the equivalent my thumb's going to be doing with this hand, in my mind, all right? So my thumb is, if I hold my hand straight like this and just do this with my thumb, with the stick on top, I can move the stick. There's enough strength in there. So that thumb is the equivalent of my hand doing this, my right hand doing this. Does that make sense? Now for newbies, I'm going to do this right-handed so I can sort of feel how it is for you guys. So we're trying to hold it straight and just use the thumb to rebound off that head. So you basically press it down and it rebounds up. Press it down, it rebounds up. So that kind of motion there. Now that is a bit like my right hand just going like this with no wrist motion. It's like me just using fingers going. We also use our fingers, our wrist, don't we? So we use a bit of wrist and a bit of... So in this hand, my left hand, I'm using a bit of wrist and a bit of that thumb. Now, it's not masses of thumb and masses of wrist. It's a bit of either one. So then when I start to do this thing I got you doing a moment ago, there's a bit of the thumb helping here now. So I'm not having to turn quite as far. Everyone with me still at the moment? If you've got any questions, type in as soon as you get them, all right? By the end of the lesson, you'll have forgot. So please just type them in. Now, how many drummers do you see holding a stick like this? 0, right? So we've got to then put our fingers around the stick. And this is where a lot of people kind of come unstuck. So I'm going to throw lots of little bits of information at you here. Do your best to take it on board. If it ever feels like you're in a funny, like, kind of weird position like this, you're doing it wrong, right? What we're trying to get here is the most efficient technique. The most efficient technique is where we're as loose as we possibly can be, and we're inhibiting, stopping the stick the least we can. In other words, we want the stick basically to do all the work for us. We just want to give it a little push each time to help move it. Does that make sense? Hopefully you're with me, all right? So if we put our hand out like this, now I'm going to bring out this little ball today a few times. Now that there's a little air golf ball, all right? So if you think of something that kind of size, maybe a tiny bit better would be better than this. If I put that in my hand there, I want to make sure that through all of this lesson today, my hand has got room to put that ball in there. Keep that in mind, right? Because we don't want our hand to be closed like this, so there's no room for that ball to fit in. Right, so just keep that in mind. We'll come back to that in a moment. What I'm going to get you to do is, well, basically what we do with traditional techniques, you make the old Spock, what was it, something and prosper in it, live long and prosper. So what happens is the 2 fingers go over the top of the stick and 2 fingers go underneath the stick, so into this position here. Now, if you're new to traditional and I've just done that, you're going like, whoa, what the hell happened there? So let's just make sure everyone understands this. I'm going to do it in this top camera. So I've gone from this position here, the karate chop, and I've started to just basically make my hand into kind of, people talk about a C shape. You see it against my t-shirt here. We've got kind of like that sort of curvy shape, all right? So I don't know what we do like that. If we're scooping something up, scooping up some water to drink or something, we're making that kind of shape, all right? So we're going from straight to the scoop, and then what I'm doing is the cuticle is where our nail joins our skin, basically. So where your nail goes out of your skin, that's where the stick is going to sit on top of. Now I've got some little bits of yellow stuff here that I was hoping you could see, but maybe I might grab some orange in a minute instead. It's not as clear as I hoped. In fact, I'm going to do that. So where that cuticle comes out, my stick is going to actually sit on there. Now that means for you guys who are new to this, it's going to hurt. It is going to hurt for a few weeks. Your nail might crack. I've had that before, and you'll develop a callus, which is hard skin all around by that nail. But eventually, after a few months, you just don't feel it anymore. It's just absolutely fine. So if I put this bit of sticky tape here, this is the first point I want you to think about. So my stick is going to be sitting on top of that cuticle there. Now my hand, we already know where it sits in the fulcrum here. My 2 fingers are going to go around the top like this. So we can see the point of contact here. That's our important one at the moment. That's all I'm thinking about. Now, what about these other guys then? Where do they touch the stick? Well, our fingers here, our thumb and our first finger here, want to make contact. So a bit like doing an OK sign or something like that, all right? They're going to make contact. and they're going to stay in contact. So these two guys here are not going to leave each other, right? We're not going to do that. They're going to be in contact. They're going to kind of work together. Right, now they don't squeeze tight. There's no tension here, but they're together. So, see if you can copy that. Now this finger is basically giving the bird, right? Now this finger here does make contact, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, right? Now what I often get here is either people just do it and they go, oh yeah, I get that. Or that if you're not that sort of person, you've got 5,000 questions now about, well, what about this bit, and what about this bit, and what about this bit and this bit. So I'm going to go quite in depth here, right? So for guys who are like, yeah, I've got this, start playing, start going back, just sit and do the things I've just told you. Other guys, I'm going to give you a bit more information, all right? So my first finger here, my forefinger, the contact point on that one is going to be more, it's going to feel like it's on the side. So you see how I put that bit of tape there on the side. So it's going to feel like I'm actually holding the stick down there, look, on the side of the side of the finger. So where that crack kind of appears in your knuckle there, that's where I'm holding it. Like that. Now this guy here, where I've cut my finger, this guy, different people will say different things about this, right? I don't use this guy a lot, but it does make contact with the stick, and it makes contact on the underside of my finger, kind of there. Can you see where I put that tape? So that's my hand in that position. I'm over this side of my finger. So I've got these different points of contact now. And I know it's hard to see, right? This is hard to explain without being able to manipulate your hand. But I've got 3 points of contact now. So I've got cuticle, I've got the underside of this finger here, and my forefinger, I've got the side of the finger. And then my thumb is touching the edge of the forefinger, and obviously it's touching the stick as well. Now that is the points of contact to make this rounded kind of motion. Well, what about this little guy here, the little finger? Well, back in the day, Ian will probably remember this. I think it might be Marty Hurley who did this, but they used to put the finger out like this. So they used to actually bring it back and point it out like that. So when I first learned drumming, I actually used to play like that. You see my finger poking out here. Let's go a bit closer so you can see. So my finger here is poking out. So that actually used to be a thing. I have no idea why they did that, but for me, that's useless, right? That just creates tension. So what we actually do with it is we use it as a bit of a stabilizer for this finger that's got holding it by the cuticle. Okay, so two fingers underneath, that's my stabilization. 2 over the top, thumb wrapping round. Now this ball thing, this is where the ball's really crucial, right? So when I took this ball earlier, this is where most people go wrong. So if I hold my hand in front like this, what most people do here is they squash that ball there out of existence like this. So if you watch from the camera at the front, you watch how my stick handle changes. Look, so it's here, and now it's down there. Now I can play like that, look, and I might not realise I'm doing it. I could probably play alright like that, but I could never get further than there without breaking my arm. So that there is what enables me, by putting that ball into that gap, opening that space up, that changes the angle of the stick. Look, so watch if I put it in, so that's closed. Watch the angle of this stick change when I open my hand, put the ball in, and so now I'm in that position that I can play. If you've got a ball or something, maybe even stick it in there. That will force you to keep that open. Right, any questions at the moment, right? Cool. First time Matt's in one of our live streams, and just want to know he stopped by and said he appreciate it. No, appreciate you giving me the comment, my friend. Thanks for dropping in. Okay, so I need some questions at the moment. I know some people now have got some questions, so start typing your questions in. I'll very quickly recap what we've got so far then, right? So we've got, with our right hand, our back fingers are replaced by our thumb on the left hand. Right? Our wrist that does this with our right hand is replaced by our wrist, or our 2 bones doing this of our left hand. Now, the bit that people get caught up on is this weird, horrible finger part. And that's the part where I'm explaining we've got 3 points of contact. We've got the edge of the finger, we've got the underside of this one that I've cut, and we've got the cuticle of that finger. Now, between the 3 of them, that's where we're holding the stick. Now, do we hold it tight? No, we don't, right? We're holding it as loose as we possibly can. We want to be holding it tight enough it doesn't fall out of our hand, but loose enough that if someone quickly came up to me now and just did that, they'd be able to pull my stick out. I don't want to be holding it so tight that I'd stop the stick, all right? You are going to find that the size of the sticks are going to make a bit of a difference. I sometimes find that if I try and use drum kit stick and it's weighted differently to this, i.e. like there's more weight at this end or more weight at this end, sometimes it could kind of slip out of my hand or move around. So sometimes you've got to get the right size stick for you. The thumb is something else that makes a big difference to this. So there used to be a lot of lines who would play with their thumb pulled back like this. Let's go in close again. So see on my thumb here, they used to do a lot of the drum lines that would pull the thumb back like that. Now I used to play a bit like that because it kind of felt like I was getting the leverage to do this. In fact, I think if I watch that 95 video again in a minute for you, you'll see that that might have been something that everyone did back then. These days, there tends to be a tendency to put the thumb flatter down like that. So it's more like instead of pointing up, it's actually being pressed on down the stick. Now, some lines are more than others. I'm going to show you blue coats later. And actually, ironically, that's Roger Carter on that video I showed you earlier. Roger Carter now teaches blue coats. So he's obviously changed his thoughts on this. If he drops in here now, I want him to type in and let us know. But we want that thumb to be down. So if you're trying to march blue coats, if that's your thing, then you need to start working on that thumb being, it's almost like it's pointing that way rather than that way. So like that. Right, let's just quickly watch those videos again so we can check the difference between those two styles and let that sort of soak in. Arm motion. I haven't spoken about arm motion yet. I'm going to talk about arm motion in a moment. But I just want you to see the way that they're approaching the drum. How the approach is different in them as well. So rather than pounding, like I imagine guys who marched in the 90s look at the guys now and say, oh, they tippy tap, and the guys who march now probably say, oh, they used to pound. So there's definitely a difference in the way that they're approaching the drum. Okay, so great question from Mark. Mark just said, at full turn, does the cuticle stay in contact with the stick? So the cuticle, this one here, we're talking about when the stick turns up like this, does this guy let go or does he hit? Well, it's a really good question. I would say up to about here, he's not letting go, right? Now, does he leave the stick? A little, yeah, depending on what I'm playing. If I'm playing doubles, so something like this, I'm probably leaving the stick. If I'm just playing eights, this, I'm probably not leaving the stick. So it kind of depends on what I'm playing. It's a bit like with your right hand when you see people who sort of put their fingers out like this. That's thought of as a bad technique. But if you're a kit player and you're trying to make a long buzz in a studio and you go, that's amazing. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like there's horses for courses, as I say, right? So yes, it does leave a little bit. But if you're just talking about playing single strokes like this, mine doesn't leave. No, it's in contact the whole time. You're going to see sort of a bad technique where people let go a lot, especially when they do doubles. You're not going to really catch this in this camera very well, but what I'm doing, if you look in this above camera, is I'm actually doing that, letting go of the stick each time. So you'll see people who sort of do this to get doubles, and you'll particularly get it when people play rolls. So I'm letting right go then, whereas the problem is the sound of the stick actually physically changes there. So we get a different noise of the stick because we're not holding it the same way. So it's going to change depending on what I'm playing. So when I do fast rolls and things, I'm actually pressing down a lot more with this guy here, and my thumb has got a tendency to leave that finger. Look, if I'll play over here so you can see in the above camera. So my thumb here, which I told you never leave that finger, I've got a bit of a tendency to kind of leave it a bit. Now that's a bad thing, bad trait to get. All right, so don't copy me on that one. Any more questions? Just type them in. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the arms. So what do the arms do? Well, a lot of drum instructors, especially old school guys, will be the way they don't do anything. They stay still. And even older school drum instructors will say, well, this needs to be up here. I marched in at cadets, and when I marched at the cadets, everybody had really high drums. I was trying to get a video, but there's no decent videos around I could see. So if I bend down a bit, there's down here, they were high, and so to make up for the highness of the drum, everyone played like this. Now that gives this from the front, this sort of V shape. So it meant that we had that kind of look about us. So that means my left hand in one line might be like this, whereas in another line, say RCC at the moment, they have their drums quite low, would be like this. So this arm position can change. That's what I'm trying to get across to you. There isn't necessarily a perfect angle from the side that this is perfect, this sucks. Do you know what I mean? There's different places, but what we're trying to think about here is the one that uses the least amount of effort. So if you're designing the best drumline in the world at the moment, and you've got scientists involved, they'd sit and they'd work out how to maximise the muscle usage. Now let's turn that on its head. They try and get you to play, but using the least amount of energy you possibly could. And it might be that a scientist would figure out your arm in this position is slightly better than this position, or this position, this position. We're just trying to make everyone look the same as a general point of view. I tend to look from the side. That's how my hand looks. Now, that's just made me think of something else we need to talk about real quick. So from above, where I was talking about this little ball being put in your hand here, right, the ball should fall out. So that this little area we're making here, if I poured water in there, you want the water to fall out. So if you're in a position at the moment where your palm is up like this, so I could pour water in there and you could actually catch the water, then you're wrong. So that will help you set the angle of this here. Because if you watch this, if I pull my finger downwards like this, so I'm coming down like that, I can still play in that position there. Now for me, I get a bit of a slice going outwards then, but some guys might accidentally get used to that and play like that. Now what we want is we don't want it too far this way, because that creates tension here. If you copy me, so bring your hand all the way back like that, that makes these tendons in here tighten up. So that ball that dropped and went flying all over the room, I want to put it in here enough that it would fall out each time I play, if I'm in my set position. Any questions at the moment? I'm just going to quickly put that video on again so you can check out how the guys look, because sometimes just by watching people you can learn a lot actually. So great questions from Jamie from Mexico. So yeah, so we're going to talk about arms, right? Now I want you to all kind of keep this in mind when we're doing this. Today I'm throwing masses of information at you that are things that I've learned and been taught and picked up over years and years and years. To take all this in one go is too much, and it's going to be too much to think about up here. So you've got to make sure that you're doing it in steps. If you think about learning to play, I don't know, golf, day one when I'm at the golf course having a lesson with a pro, he's going to basically teach me maybe my swing, right? He's not going to teach me every fine little detail that if you do this and this and this and this and your head and your feet and if you buy a different, there's too many variables. What we're trying to fix at the moment are the big variables. So what I'm about to show you here to do with the arms is something that a lot of drumlines do, but this is not as big a variable when you're starting out. So if you're day one, you're just starting to mess around with this, don't worry too much about this. Guys who've been doing it a little bit longer, let's discuss this a bit. So I've got a bit of a movement here that I do. Now, funnily enough, I sometimes get slated for this, for having a chicken wing on YouTube and stuff like that. Not so much drum corps people, but the kit guys. And the chicken wing here, I forget the name of it. One of the Americans on here will know this because they study a lot of this stuff. But there's a marimba technique which kind of involves doing this motion a lot. Now, so a drumline did this a long time ago, and they didn't get slated, but it was so hard for everybody to look the same. Well, that's almost become what drumlines do now. So when you see drumlines playing, you sort of see this side to side happening. And the best way to learn that, if you just hold your sticks in front of you, imagine your two arms here and here are kind of got a wire connecting them, so that when one goes one way, just do that like you're making a seesaw. So that sort of motion there is the sort of thing that's happening. So we are getting a bit of this with our left hand. Now that is going to help me leverage the stick up. Now if I just play single strokes like that and I want to get full turn, I can let this happen, look. Now I've got another video actually I want you to quickly watch, and you'll see these guys doing it. So I've got a video on here of blue coats doing it, and they do exactly what I'm just doing. Keep in mind, so you march blue coats to this next year if drum corps on. There's multiple different ways they're going to approach an exercise. So they may say, right, we're going to play an exercise with normal technique, and that will just be standard normal technique, right? So whatever we think of as normal. Then they might say, right, we're going to play this really loose legato. So that might be when they use the arm and the other arm, right? Then they're going to go, well, what about moella? So because these are the elite, they've got the ability to change techniques, right? I want you guys to be able to do that, but don't get too drawn into that one of those techniques is better than the other, right? They're all viable. It's just that you've got to know when to use the one, when to use the other. Right, let's quickly put this on anyway while I quickly read Ian's question. So I'm going to find the blue coats video. I think I put it on here. Yeah, check this out. Check out their arms, particularly their left elbows I want you to look at. you see they're doing that chicken wing. You see it going in and out. So in that particular instance, the chicken wing, we're going to call it, right? I'm going to trademark that, is a thing. Now, if we do it too much, obviously it turns into something else. But what I'm getting at is, yes, you can use this. Now, how do you teach yourself to do that? I've no idea how I picked that up. That's just something that happened over years of playing. I think I could probably teach someone by getting them to hold the stick without much risk and turn, without much of this turn, without much of the thumb, without much of the other fingers doing anything, which we'll talk about in a moment, but just getting them just to use their arm to kind of move the stick. So try and copy that. Now, this isn't the technique to use, right? If you only do this, you're going to suck, right? But if you add a little bit of this into your playing, a little bit like a sauce on top of your dinner, it will help you. So I'm moving a little in here, look. Now, think of it as well. This movement that I'm teaching here is slightly this movement as well. So there's a tiny bit of up and down at the same time as a in and out. So my hand, in other words, let me make sure you understand that. My wrist isn't staying in the same spot and my arm just doing this. My wrist's going up and down at the same time, look. Can you see that? So my right hand would probably do the same thing. So big turns, and then my left. Now, we don't always play this high, do we? But when we do, when blue coats do, they've got that nailed now because they've done an exercise with that in. Right, Ian's just asked, yeah, great question. So he's talked about changing grip between kit and snare drum. So I actually play kit match grip always. And I've toyed with, literally in the last 3 weeks particularly, changing everything to traditional. And I've had a little play. And I don't like it. So for me at the moment, in my brain, there's a funny little thing that this feels right for me on my drum kit. And this feels right for me on my snare drum. And so I'm not worrying about it. When I do play this way on the kit, no, I don't actually change technique at all. The only thing that's a little bit different is obviously the size of the sticks. So sometimes I actually buy quite thick sticks. Like Thomas Lang sells some sticks that are like this size. The problem is if you're into jazz and stuff, it's not going to be the right style of stick for that. But so yeah, I don't really have a great answer for that other than I use the same technique on both, in all honesty. So Ian's just asked another thing though. So I was going to mention this earlier. So when we talk about the drum core technique that we're talking about here, WGI, drum core, that kind of thing, this is a reasonably standard thing that all these drum lines will do. Well, why do pipe band drummers do something completely different? Or why do, I think the Five guys probably do a similar thing, but you know what I'm saying? Why do these other drummers do something completely different? There's some guys, Swiss guys, who hold the stick like this instead of on the thumb on top, and they can still play like. So some of it is tradition. Some of it is that it's the best technique for that style of drum head or drum. But the pipe bands are very similar to us. Now, the pipe band drummers, what they tend to do, I'm not a pipe band drummer, right? And so don't take this as Geoff said to do this. I just know that they do something similar from watching them, where everything's kind of elongated a little bit. So the fingers might be stretched down a little bit more like this. So the thumb still can play. In fact, the thumb can probably play faster because it's got less tension in it. But I would imagine, I could be pulled up here. Cuticle Patrick's not going to be watching this and slate me, but I imagine they would struggle a little bit more than the drum corps guys to play something like this. Just big accents, because they would play it like they would be doing 10,000 notes in there. Maybe a bit more arm, but for the fast stuff, then you're going to see these guys doing this. Now, I would say that for what they do, it's obviously the best thing because it's evolved over years and years and years. And I would say the drum corps guys is obviously the best thing for them. But I'd like to see one try on the other and ever try. You know what I mean? It'd be nice to see a whole pipe band play like this or a whole drum line play like this. But that's something to keep in mind. So when you're watching other videos, if you see some pipe band drummer talking about it, don't necessarily think he's right or wrong. Just think that they do something slightly different. So that finger's going to be like this. Yeah, I don't ever change though. So for everything I do, I'm in this position here. The only difference between me, drum corps me, if I was marching snare in the drum corps, and me, is that I hold a little bit further down the stick because of those kind of all the backsticking stuff that I do in the freestyle type stuff. Okay, any questions at the moment? Start typing them in because I'm going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing here. So fingers, I want to talk about those. So you're going to sometimes see kit players, Buddy Rich and people like that started all this, where they were like, well, the way to get fast is hold your stick upside down and do this with your fingers. Now, have I done that yet? Did it get me any better? Don't know. Do I teach it these days? Not really, no. So for me, the upside down position where you're doing this with your fingers is teaching people the rebound quite well. It gets them used to throwing the stick and then the stick bouncing back up. Let's go in close so you can see what I'm doing there. So all I'm doing is I'm using my fingers to tap the stick down, and it's basically pivoting over here, look. That kind of motion there. So you would often have seen guys playing and then sort of turn their hand, going from this position and then turn their hand over to change to that and coming back. I've done all this stuff, so maybe all these little things, little tiny things, have all given me something in my brain that's helped my left hand get better. But that isn't something that I necessarily practice. The freestyle stuff, someone should put freestyle question mark. So the freestyle stuff is basically, you're going to have to go and spend some time on YouTube to get this, but freestyle generally is where people are playing to music, so chart music and that kind of stuff, and they're playing all crazy backsticking, all this kind of, all the crazy backsticking you could ever imagine, lots of crossing over, lots of moving around the drum, dancing, all sorts of stuff like that. So I guess the big difference is it's not that there's not 4 people or 6 people all stood being judged to be about the same, whereas it's a lot more kind of fun drumming, that kind of stuff. All right. Well, I've lost my way there. Just seeing a question beautifully. Okay. So let's get this back. So fingers, yeah, that's why I was going with fingers. What do the fingers do? So my first finger, this guy here, the forefinger, I think he's called this first one here, this one, this little piggy, right? This guy is going to be doing a bit of this motion here, kind of tapping downwards. Now he's obviously doing it in tandem with the thumb. There are certain motions, like doubles, where I feel like I'm kind of clawing it a bit, kind of going tap, 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 tap. Now my thumb must be helping, but I do feel a little bit like that finger does a little bit more in things like 3s, 4s. That certainly feels like anything that's a lot of notes being bounced tends to be these guys up here. This guy here, so this one that I've cut my finger, this guy here, he does seem to help a little bit. So just having his little bit of presence on the side of the stick does push down. I'd like to know if any other drummers do this. I've never sat and practiced with just him, trying to like strengthen him so that he can actually do anything. So whereas this hand, my right hand, I'm really, really into the idea of everybody learning to use all 4 of the fingers, because otherwise what's the point in having one finger that doesn't work? And so I sometimes get people doing things like this, like just play the little finger, just play with the next finger, just the first finger, just the second, because it works those fingers individually. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. And I'm like, well, why can't I do it this hand? Well, I kind of can. Thumb, first finger, second one-ish, and then the rest ain't doing nothing, right? So that's something to maybe mess around with. But in all honesty, that finger there, the bird finger, he doesn't seem to do as much as the rest for me on my left hand. So, starting to combine these things then, right? So if I'm just playing now, slowly, really slowly, I'm going to look at big motions. I want to come up to here. I'm using a bit of the old chicken. And I'm not using much of the fingers, like or my thumb. As I get faster, I'm going to come a little bit lower, probably. There's no rules, but I'm going to come lower. Now there's less of my chicken going on, look. Now there's more of my thumb. Now what's hard here is keeping that open. Now you can see I'm starting to let go a little bit, actually. Let's come back to Mark's question earlier. I'm starting at that speed to bring this cuticle off the stick a little bit. I saw a video earlier, actually. I was going to put it up, but Scott Johnson, there's a video of him maybe 2-3 years ago playing some stuff on a snare on YouTube. Insane, absolutely insane what he's playing. But what I was looking for was I was trying to make sure that I was kind of on the ball with what was going on with current techniques. And actually, I was surprised he lets go quite a bit. So only extreme stuff. So he was playing some crazy kind of like. So I would sort of say that it is the done thing to let go sometimes. But if I'm just playing the average sort of parts, paradiddles, that kind of thing, then I don't need to let go. It's only going to be at the extremities. That kind of stuff that I'm going to start to let go, all right? Okay. So as I get faster, then we're starting to get to the twitch. My twitch is absolutely useless, all right? I used to be rubbish with the twitch this hand. This one's always been pretty good. This one, useless. Andy McNamee's watching this. He's one of those kids who's been gifted with like super fast twitch. But the twitch is something that I would like you to try and work on. So the twitch is where you sort of go from being in control of the stick to kind of locking into the point where you sort of, you don't lock, but there's almost a muscle up here which almost sort of goes into autopilot, and you just start to like, now if you've got to think what's happening here, right? Your brain is literally sending little signals of electricity down your arm saying go, 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 go to kind of do this, to tense. Now my right hand's pretty good at it, right? My left hand not as good, but I can get by, right? It's fast enough to get by. So that's something for you to start practicing. The way that I've sort of helped myself get a bit faster at that is to start slow and then suddenly speed the signals up, then slow back down again, then speed the signals up. Now the reason I'm doing that is I'm trying to find out then which of these muscles is the culprit, because the reason I can't go as fast as Andy Mack, for instance, is because I'm tensing up one of these muscles. Whereas he's not. He's just on my right hand. Let's talk about my right hand, not him. Right? I don't want to pick on him, right? So my right hand here, I can keep that going for quite a while because nothing seems to tense up. I've just got the signal coming down. I'm throwing the little jolt of energy at the stick. It goes down, bounces back up. I do it again. This hand, I throw the stick down, send the jolt of energy, but I keep it tense for too long. So that's something to start trying to practice, these little low patterns. So I was learning something earlier this week to go on the Freestyle Rudiments Academy website, and it was RCC have got an exercise where they basically kind of go, and that motion, whether that's by design or not, is practicing exactly what I'm talking about here. It's just getting that twitch going enough so you can kind of just keep that bounce going. Okay, right, I'm going to quickly chat for a moment while you guys start to type some questions in. I know some people must have some questions. There's no stupid questions, right? So if you've got a question and you think, oh, you answered this, I was going to think I'm stupid. I'm not, right? If you've got a question, I haven't got the information across well enough to you. So get the questions in now. Anything to do with technique, match grip or traditional technique, get those questions in now. For those guys who are watching this for the first time, get yourself in a Marching Drummers Lounge. That's a Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group. There's no kind of catches in or anything like that. Get yourself in there. It's just a bunch of marching drummers talking about marching drumming. This is show 19 now. So there's been 18 previous shows. All the old shows are in there. The notation from those shows are in there, and all sorts of discussion and all that kind of stuff. As I mentioned at the start, Freestyle, where is it? The Freestyle Rudiments Marching Drum Academy is now live and open on Facebook. Not on Facebook, on the internet. www.freestylrudiments.com. If you're into your marching drumming and you enjoyed this lesson today, well, there's loads and loads and loads of lessons in there. It is something you pay for on a monthly basis, but I've kept it really cheap. As well as keeping it cheap, it's constantly updating, so you constantly get new lessons in there. Let's see if I can go in a little bit. I'm sat a bit too far away. So you can see here, look, at the moment we've got 3 different classrooms in there. We've got our main classroom with our lessons in. We've got a whole area which teaches you how to read music. We've got our forums, and we've got guest lessons as well. So we've got some big names from around the drumcore world who are going to be doing guest lessons for us. And you can see there's lessons on all sorts of stuff in there. All you do is you find your lesson, you click on it, you press go.
This is the 16th note hatter exercise.
You get me teaching you a lesson, right? At the end of the lesson, I tend to do 3 or 4 reps with a metronome at 3 different tempos, and you also get down here the notation for PDF for you to download. There's weekly content that I put on there, so every week at least 1 new lesson goes in. At the moment, more like 10 lessons are going on there. And this live lesson I've done today, well, there's going to be some lessons only for the guys in there. Also, I want to do some Zoom lessons. I want to do something where we get everybody so I can see you all and you can see me, and we can maybe have a chat afterwards and stuff. So I'm going to try and tie that in with the Marching Drummers Academy, so get yourself in there. Okay, come on, I want some lessons. Can I send a video of my technique? Yes, so the thing to do, right, anyone who wants their technique kind of evaluated, get it in this group here, Marching Drummers Lounge, get a video of yourself on there playing so that people can have a look and evaluate. I'm looking at starting a service where I do this. Now, it would be charged, I'm not going to lie to you. I do Skype lessons at the moment, so if someone wants private Skype lessons with me, get in touch. That's the thing we can sort out. It's going to be a similar service to that, where you send me it, I'll put it in my computer, I'll edit it in my video editing software, spot any mistakes, and I'll send it back to you. The Skype lessons are obviously what you see here, right? We speak, I teach, we send PDFs across to each other, that kind of thing. This is what I want you to think about, though. Whenever you're videoing yourself, there's so many people at the moment who are doing videos of themselves. Make sure, a couple of hints and tips for you, right? The light source has to be in front. So don't have a light behind you because it makes a picture terrible. if I turn all the other lights on this room, well, I'm in pretty much like equivalent to a front room here, right? If I turn all the other lights on, see how it's gone all yellowy? Well, that's because in this room, it's got normal lights in here. So normal lights make the video go all yellowy and nasty. So ideally, you want kind of white light. Now, that isn't expensive to buy a white light. The lights that I've got in here cost like 50 quid. I don't expect you to spend 50 quid on it, but just putting a lamp in front of you in front will make the picture 100 times better. The other thing is, make sure that it's in a position where people can kind of see your hands to be able to tell what's going on. So go quite close. Even if you haven't got your head in the picture, even if your shot is like this, that's actually way easier for someone to say, look, what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, than it is if we get 1 mile away. So yeah, so get yourself in there. Marching Drummers Lounge, put your video up in there. There's a load of DCI vets in there already. I'm in there. There's all sorts of quite talented guys actually in there, and they're all nice guys. They'll give you feedback. The great thing about this group is if there's any idiots in there, then we can kick them out because it's our own group just for marching drumming. All the guys who are in there are great. So any other questions at the moment? Come on, there must be some more questions. The big thing I want to make sure everyone gets today is that idea of that ball, because not many people seem to talk about that. When I see a lot of kit drummers who are trying to learn traditional grip, the standard mistake when you first start is instead of holding it like this, like I'm in here, it's holding it like this. Now there's a subtle difference there. If you look at my hand here, it's changing the angle. Now what I do then is I can't get a turn. People go like, how'd you do this? You can't turn your wrist. Well, all you've got to do is push your fingers out like that, like you're flicking water off your fingers, and all of a sudden your stick will open up like that. So Suggs has asked for my brushing my hair technique. So actually, do you know what? I don't use a brush. I use my fingers. And I haven't got any more to say on that. Someone told me yesterday that they reminded me of Russell Kane. I'm not sure if that's hair thing. I'm going to have to start putting it a bit lower. It's getting a bit Jedward, isn't it? Anyway, so final thing for you guys, get yourself in front of your mirror. Make sure your heights are exactly the same, whatever you're playing. And make sure that this V that I'm making here, see where my sticks are here, this V here, make sure that they're the same. So we don't really want to line the people who look like that, because my V's kind of wonky now, isn't it? We don't want a V like that. So we want them to be even. Now sometimes you're going to see people talking about putting 2 fingers, can you see my fingers here, down, to be the right distance off the head? So this comes out straight and that sets me up to play then. Sometimes you're going to talk about people putting 2 fingers here to make sure that angle's not too much. I would say these days drummers tend to play a little bit lower here than a lot of the old days when snares were quite high. Used to be a little bit more like this. Now I'm not slagging off the players from that era. Like there's some serious players from the old days, let's call it. But it's just a different period, different time. Okay, I'm just going to put that blue coats on again. One more moment. So you can check those guys out, and I'm just going to quickly read that message. Okay, so a couple of questions there. So James just asked about the ball in the hand, so I'm just going to quickly recap that in case anyone missed that. So the idea of the ball was this ball here, in this position here. I'm looking at the above camera here, right? So if you imagine that I'm playing here, if I put that ball in there, then my hand is open about the amount that I want it to be. So if I take my stick away, look, you can see it's like a cup, like I'm drinking water. What we start to find often is that people get rid of that area that would normally hold the ball, and they let the weight of the stick close that, so the ball can't fit in there anymore. So you want to make sure that you could at least fit a squash ball or a golf ball, something like this in there. I've never thought of doing this before, but you could get people to practice like that. You could stick a ball in there and get them to play for a bit. That might be something that would help people. I short saw, I haven't got a pen here. I was going to show you something else, but I haven't got a pen. Okay, let's answer this other question. So Who was it? One moment. Right, I'm going to split this question in two. So Sarah, I think it is. I can't see it from here. Sorry, Mike. Has just asked a couple of things. One, he's got a bit of a twinge, sort of a problem, right? That's happening when he practices. We'll talk about that second. All right, I'll come to that in a moment. As far as improving your speed, this is something that I want to get across to everybody who's watching this. You have to play a bit. I don't like swearing at you, but a bit shit, basically. So you've got to basically be. If you think of like this as like a speed thing, right? So like submarines, and it was like slow, forward, crazy fast, that kind of thing, like a speedometer, right? Well, if you think about this is your maximum at the moment, so you can go slow, faster. This is the maximum that you can reach. If you only ever practice here, that's as fast as you'll ever be able to play. You have to practice here, just a little bit past what you can do. And it's going to be a bit crap, and you're going to sound a bit rubbish, but what will happen is, slowly, this bar here will move across. And then you'll be a bit crap here, and this will move across, and you'll be a bit crap here. So playing badly is absolutely fine. And playing like crazy fast and not being able to do it, and looking a bit horrible and tense and all that is fine. The key to it really is monitoring that. So you play to a metronome, so you know, right, I can reach 210 beats a minute doing paradiddles. If I play 212, it's a bit messy, I can't keep up. As long as you practice that, eventually your threshold will change, all right? So going on to your other question, it's a hard one for me to answer on here, because any kind of pain after practicing is a bad thing. So that is something to worry about, right? It's something that you need to fix. A couple of things that could be just minor things. So if I play on a marching snare drum a lot, and then I transition to a pad like this one I'm playing with now, a rubber one, I tend to get pain in the ear, a bit of sort of tendonitis. I don't really get tendonitis, but that kind of feel. It's better, in my opinion, to play on a pad that's rock hard, like your snare drum. I get a lot less problems when I go from this to this. I get the same on drum kits if I go from mesh kits, playing a lot of mesh kits, to like Roland kits, to my acoustic, and back and forth. If I keep doing that, I tend to get a bit of pain as well. It could be something as simple as that. It could be, though, something worse. It could be that some kind of technique problem. Now, it's hard to fix that over the internet. That's something you probably need to get private lessons. So you need to sit with somebody, or maybe a Skype could fix it as well, where you try and figure out, right, what's tensing up here. It can only be a few things generally, unless you've got an actual issue with your body, something's actually broken, let's say, then it's going to be that you're tensing something up when you shouldn't be. It's as simple as that. At some point, you're tensing a muscle or a tendon or something. It might be worth you looking at a bit of body anatomy to get this. I mean, I studied sports science, so when I kind of think in my head about what's going on in my arm, I can sort of see it as if there's no skin there, as if I sort of see, there's a tendon here and it's kind of ligaments and muscles. When you understand that a little bit, you can sort of maybe figure out what's going on. But the basics are that you're either tensing up too much on one muscle, or you're stretching something in a way that's not designed. When people get kind of they use their mouse too much, and they get like an injury. Well, it tends to be not they're using their mouse too much, it's because they're using their mouse too much, but their wrist's always in this position when they're moving it. Or guitarists get it. So if they're playing their guitar and they just play it with a funny too high or something, they tend to get a problem. Then as soon as someone says, lower your guitar and your wrist's not bent funny, they fix it. It's going to be probably something like that with you. It could be that a wrist's in the wrong position, or it could be a tensing. Okay. Any more questions? Because I'm going to start to wrap up. But before I wrap up, so what I was saying was, what you want to start trying to do now is get in front of that mirror and try and just see if you can match the two. If you're new to this, you're going to be better at match grip to start with. Just accept I'm going to be crap like this for a month, 2 months, and then you'll start to pick it up. If you need help with it, get yourself a teacher, contact me for some Skype lessons. Get yourself in the Marching Drummers Lounge. There's actually a whole other lesson on there all about left-hand technique. Or get yourself in the Marching Drummers Lounge group on Facebook and get some videos up and questions up in there. Any other questions? I tell you what I did see earlier, which I was thinking about. So some people are now going to go away and they're going to play like this, and they're going to go, I'm pretty good at this. And then when they start to do rolls, they're going to be, hold on, that's a different technique altogether. So you're right. So in the same way as your right hand is going to do a different technique for this as this, same with the left hand. If I'm playing singles or if I'm playing downwards motions like Speedo, we've got a whole, what show is it? Like show 15 or something like that. We spoke all about Speedo technique. Well, that's going to be a different arm motion to normal. Like what I'm doing here, this up and down, isn't how I want someone to play a drum normally. So you are going to have to learn to adapt to fit those kind of things. Okay. I think I've got one more message. Awesome. look forward to seeing you at the side event as well. Yeah, awesome. So, right, I'm going to wrap up there. So, as I said earlier, please go and check out, not Bluecoats, but this for me, freestylrudiments.com. The website in there now is all up and running fully. So you can go in there. There's a whole video at the start here telling you all about what you get, what it does, and what the plans are for this. Because I really want to grow this. This isn't going to be just a go in and buy my course and then I never see you again. This is a full-on academy which I want to grow and grow and grow. Get yourself over there and have a look at that. At the moment, I'm doing an offer on the books. So some of you may know that I've got 2 books out. So if you type in Freestyle Rudiments, I can't see what I'm typing here, but I'm not going to bother, right? But if you type in freestylrudiments.com and you put free red book at the end of it, well, guess what? You'll get yourself a copy of the red book. So I'm having a bit of a celebration of that open at the moment. So maybe go and practice that with some traditional grip. I'll see you next time. So see you all again. Thanks for watching. Oh, one last thing. If you know anyone who would dig this, please share it. Please tag their names in. If you're in a drum line, there's no point just having one good snare player. You need all to be good. So stick all the rest of your snare line in here. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to do on these free lessons. And I'll see you over at the Marching Drum Academy. See you next time.